Congratulations. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Township of Hillsborough Planning Board. It's October 10th, 2019. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, also known as the Sunshine Law. Notice of the 2019 annual meeting schedule has been provided to the officially designated newspapers, Township Clerk, and posted on the bulletin board at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Jett, Mr. Weinstein, Mr. Keeson, Mr. Hestag, and Chair Sriracha are absent. Mr. Scobo?
Here.
Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Santoromita?
Here.
Committeeman Lapani?
Here.
Mayor Delcourt?
Here.
Vice Chair Julie?
Here. Okay, next up on the agenda would be consideration of minute meetings, which I don't see that we have any tonight. So we will continue to the next item on the agenda, which would be a resolution, which is application 19PB-13-S. It's for the Neil I. Van Cleef, 10 Railsdale Road and 32 Brower Lane, Block 199, lots 33.12 and 34.01. Can I have a motion to, Counselor, we want to look at the resolution and see who's eligible to vote?
I believe it is. Is there a motion?
Yeah,
Well, who's eligible?
Eligible members are Mr. Julian, Mr. Delcourt, Mr. Lapani, Mr. Wagner, and Mr. Scobo.
I'll go ahead and make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a second. Okay, so can we have a roll call, please, on that resolution?
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Committeeman Lapani?
Yes.
Mayor Delcourt?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julie?
Yes. Okay, so the resolution is passed. Next on the agenda would be any planning board business, which I don't think we have any beside the applicants tonight. Is there any business from the floor that's not pertaining to the applicants tonight that anyone would like to talk about? Okay. All right, if not, then we will proceed to the applicants. The first applicant is H.A. Drallmeyer, LLC, 19-PB-08 MSB. Counselor?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board, members of the public. My name is Francis P. Linus, and I represent the applicant this evening. I represent H.A. Drallmeyer. Basically, by way of background, in 2011, we appeared before the Planning Board for the original site plan and variances approval. Those of you board members who might know where it used to be Accredited Dermatology. It's a medical office building on 247 Route 206. It's in your highway service zone. At that time, the board granted minimum lot area variances, a minimum lot width variance, and a minimum buffer variance. I'm pleased to announce that we're not seeking any new variances. Those variances run with the land. What we're proposing tonight is an amended site plan approval to construct a 550 square foot addition to the existing 1564 square foot building with associated site improvements. Once again, there will be no impact on the previously approved variances. We'll also be seeking waivers from an environmental impact statement, a traffic impact statement, and ASD standards if applicable. I have 3 potential witnesses, 2 of whom I will introduce, and 1 will hold in reserve if the board would like to hear from him. My first witness will be Holger Drallmeyer. He's a representative of H.A. Drallmeyer, and he's also a principal of Swiss Orthopedics. You'll hear that the application involves moving Swiss Orthopedics, where they're renting now, to an ownership situation right on Route 206. In addition to Mr. Drallmeyer, I have Mike Ford from Van Cleef. He's the applicant's professional engineer. And if necessary, we can introduce Robert Longo of Cornerstone Architects. He's the applicant's architect. So without further ado, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Mr. Drallmeyer.
Please do.
Is this working?
Yeah, we got to swear him in. We have to swear the, you get us,
Brian, testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
yeah, take the mic.
Then just do me a favor and state, spell your name.
Holger Drallmeyer,
Can you spell it?
Holger, last name Drallmeyer.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Drallmeyer, what is your relationship to H.A. Drallmeyer LLC?
I'm the principal of H.A. Drallmeyer, and I'm also the president of Swiss Orthopedic Incorporated.
Okay, and H.A. Drallmeyer is under contract to purchase the subject property?
That is correct.
Okay. And you want to describe your business, Swiss Orthopedics, both where it is and what you do there?
Yes, we're currently at 188 Route 206. We're in Hillsborough residence since 1989. We moved to the current location in 1991. That's where we are since. And we are a company who makes prosthetic legs and fits patients with braces and orthopedic devices. We get our referrals mostly from local doctors, orthopedic groups, hospitals. We do see patients on the road. We do house calls. We do visits to skilled nursing facilities. We do visits to hospitals such as Robert Johnson University Hospital and St. Peter's Hospital. We see a certain amount of patients directly in our office, similar to our doctor's office, where patients make appointments with us and get fitted, let's say, for a prosthetic leg or a certain type of brace that was ordered by a physician.
All right, what certifications do you have, sir?
I'm a state licensed orthotist, that's a mouthful. A state licensed orthotist and...
Say it fast 10 times.
Yes, orthotist and prosthetist. So an orthotist is somebody who makes braces. A prosthetist is somebody who makes prosthetic legs. I have a license in both disciplines.
Okay. And how many employees do you anticipate at the new location?
Currently have 5 employees. We may add another employee, so the total would be 6.
All right, what type of employees? What kind of mix are we talking?
Yeah, we have 2 office staff. We have a technician. I have an assistant. I'm looking to add another practitioner, maybe next year, but I don't know just yet. But that's basically our office staff is responsible for daily operations, insurance relations, insurance authorizations and billing, dealing with insurance companies and patient communications. Our practitioner is usually the one who sees the patients and evaluates patients for prosthetic or orthotic devices. And our technician aids the orthotist, in this case that would be me, in assembling the prosthetic or orthotic device.
All right, what are your hours of operation?
We're open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. We offer Saturday morning appointments from 8 to 10. Most appointments are made by appointment. We're not really a walk-in facility, but most patients come with an appointment.
And you're not open on Sundays?
We're not open on Sundays.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Any questions from any of the board members? Or anything? I think we would save our questions for the engineers, or, okay.
You have a motion to open to public.
Okay. I have a motion to open to the public.
So moved?
I'll second.
Okay, we are open to the public. Does anybody from the public have a question for this particular witness?
Okay.
Okay, if not, proceed for the
Okay,
next.
thank you, Holger.
Thank you.
Mike Ford?
Brian, testimony you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
State and spell your name.
Michael Ford, F-O-R-D.
I think we could waive the credentials, right, Pat?
Okay.
Okay,
I think we're good.
okay.
Second.
All right, Michael, you want to give the board for probably the 100th time your background, qualifications, and experience?
I think we're good.
We're good, we're good.
Got it, okay. I thought you'd say that, all right. Mike, you're the project engineer for the project, is that not correct?
Yes,
Okay. And in that capacity, you're certainly familiar with the Hillsborough Township Land Development Ordinance and the Municipal Land Use Law?
Yes.
And the other regulations affecting the property, correct?
yes.
Okay. You want to start your presentation by first displaying to the board and the public the existing conditions and the proposed conditions.
Yes, actually, I had the screen up there, and it's not,
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. If you have any conductivity?
it went silent.
What's asleep?
This is the dark internet.
We could be in California, be out of power.
We're either going to get the Giant game or
Okay.
Devils?
the applicant.
Just, okay, the rendering you see is Plan Sheet 2 as part of the application. It's, I think, a good illustration because it shows the existing conditions on the left and the proposed conditions on the right. And simply the subject of the application is a dark, what's highlighted in dark brown, approximately 500 square foot addition to the rear of the existing building, and that would be over an existing impervious area that's 3 parking spaces. Then the access to the building is at the rear, so there'd be a new sidewalk, which would be ADA compliant to the new entryway, as well as a sidewalk to a secondary access, which is a new door on the new addition. All the other site elements would remain unchanged. The existing parking lot beyond the 3 spaces that are being eliminated for the addition, those 17 remaining parking spaces would remain unchanged. The landscaping that was planted as part of the prior application and ongoing professional use of the building is well established, so there's a good buffer along our sides and to the rear. That would remain unchanged. The site lighting in the parking area would remain unchanged, as would the access to Route 206, which is a single driveway.
And the rear buffer is in a conservation easement, is that correct?
That's correct. So, and then with regards to the addition would be serviced through existing utility connections that service the existing building, so there'd be no new utilities. There is an existing trash enclosure along the northerly access driveway. That again remains unchanged. And you'll see what we've highlighted here in dark green is a substantial portion of the existing, which is currently pavement for the existing parking, would be revegetated in green and landscaped.
Did you have an opportunity to review, Mr. Ford, Mr. Euro's August 29, 2019 report?
Yes.
And do you want to address that report and provide any comments?
Okay.
Got it, thanks.
With regards to traffic, it's a professional use. It's going to remain a professional use. We don't anticipate any appreciable changes in traffic generation from the site. It accesses Route 206, where there's certainly substantially more existing background traffic on Route 206. We're not touching the DOT right away. Certainly no more, anywhere close to a change in 100 trips per day at the site. There was a traffic report done as part of the prior application, and this application being so minimal, we don't really expect any changes in the traffic as a result of this application. And we fully understand, and the applicant fully understands, that DOT envisions this would be, I think, the remaining leg within Hillsborough to be improved, the remaining leg of Route 206 to be improved by the state, which would include 2 lanes in each direction with a concrete barrier down the middle, and that would be along the frontage of this site. So hopefully in the not too distant future, those improvements would be in place, and this would be a right-in, right-out access driveway, and the applicant understands that.
So we're applying for a TIS waiver, is that correct?
Yes, no traffic impact statement, no environmental impact statement nor a community impact statement. Community impact statements are primarily, looking at school impact and school children. Since this is not a residential project, there'd be no impacts there. And with regards to the environmental impact statements, we've been to the Environmental Commission. There is a report we'll discuss in a moment, but the areas to be disturbed as part of this application are less than 1/10 of an acre. They're so de minimis that we don't even need soil erosion and sediment control approval. We actually received a waiver of that, the need for that approval already, as well as an approval letter from the Somerset County Planning Board and the Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission exemption. So this is a very small project, and the areas to be disturbed are previously disturbed.
All right, there were three items of discussion that you'd like to discuss, I take it, from the engineer's report, and that would be items 8, 9, and 10 that appears in the technical comments.
Yes, already with regards to 8, that's site lighting. Already described that there were no changes in the site lighting. There's a suggestion that we add a security light over the entrance at the building, and the applicant will provide, a light at that entrance, and it can be used as a security light. With regards to the ADA access, that's item 9. As I've stated already, we're going to comply and certainly provide for access to the building in accordance with the ADA handicap accessibility standards. And then with regards to the other items, it's really all the items in Mr. Euro's report, we comply and address them to his satisfaction.
All right. What about item number 9, the access?
The ADA access?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just said that we would provide ADA access. There is a handicap space in the existing parking area, and the walkway from that space to the building would be ADA compliant.
And by the way, this property is located in the Architectural and Site Design Overlay Standard Zone. You're familiar with that ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it applies?
No, and we are, if you've seen the building, it's an old ranch residential house that was converted to office use. The applicant has engaged an architect to not only prepare plans for the addition, but some enhancements to the existing facade, including eliminating the front door that's not really used, but at the front of the building. So we believe that the proposed applicant's improvements to the building will be an enhancement to the visual aspects of the building.
Okay.
Did you have anything else, Mr. Euro, to discuss?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 10, regarding the sign, you want to talk about the sign, the existing monument sign?
Yes, there's an existing sign at the front of the property. That would be remain in place, just obviously replaced with regards to the applicant's particular use. And I have a quick illustration. I can show you what that looks like. Here's the architectural plans. And then here's the existing building or existing site freestanding sign. And that would,
Not moving it, right?
we're not touching it other than to replace it with a sign design like what is illustrated here. One of the questions was the red color, and we're envisioning a red sign. If you're familiar with the applicant's current facility, north of this site on the southbound lane of 206, it's a similar red color, Swiss Orthopedic.
That was not submitted with the packet, so I think we should just mark that A1.
Okay.
So the new sign graphics are marked A1. And with respect to the remainder of Mr. Euro's report, we have no issues with that. Is that correct?
None. Correct.
Okay, now I want to refer you to Mr. Gorman's October 2nd, 2019 report. You want to provide your comments with respect to that report?
So I think the introduction by Mr. Linus outlined the technical variances part of the application. They're all existing non-compliant conditions that were approved as part of the prior application, and this application won't exacerbate or impact those prior non-conformities in any way. in summary, we have no objections to Mr. Gorman's report with regards to the application, except one item. There was a suggestion that the application secure some DOT permit or approval or sign off. I've discussed this issue with Mr. Gorman. Since we're not proposing any changes to the existing driveway on Route 206, no appreciable changes in the traffic, no DOT permit or approvals required, so we would ask that that not be a requirement.
And then I think we'll be looking for a waiver of the loading space.
Yes, that was part and parcel to the prior approval of the conversion of the existing facility to professional office use, and we again would request that waiver.
Just real quick, Mr. Ford, just clarification, if there's no loading space, what kind of deliveries are you expecting, type of vehicles?
I've discussed that with the applicant. They basically have daily deliveries by UPS or FedEx trucks. No large vehicles, just a standard box truck. They pull in, curbside delivery, pull out.
Okay, you did appear before the Environmental Commission along with our client, is that correct?
Yes.
And as a result of that, the Environmental Commission issued a report dated October 8th, 2019.
Yes.
And there's nothing in the Environmental Commission report that anybody should be concerned about?
No, these are really summary bullet points of the factual comments that in our presentation to the board, and I've already highlighted, I think, all of those items. There really were no requirements or suggestions that we change anything.
Yeah, I mean, just the one consideration at the end of the report with the 2 invasive species, the burning bush and the gallery pear.
Yeah, actually, and then that was actually a comment, I think, in Mr.
Similar.
Euro's report as well,
Okay.
and we would comply.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And finally, the only other report we received was from the Bureau of Fire Safety, and they had no requirements or comments with respect to the application. I have no further questions for Mr. Ford.
Mr. Gorman, you have anything you want to bring up?
Just 2 comments, Mr. Chairman. First, the board should at least just reaffirm the variances that were granted as part of the site application because there is a change going on to the property at the moment. It's just a technicality, in respect.
That's right, use the mic, please, stand there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, is it on? Yep. Should be on now, right?
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
So the board should just reaffirm the previous variances granted for the prior application because there is a small change to the property. So technically, it's a technicality that the board should reaffirm the prior waivers and variances granted. And then in regards to the DOT application, it's Bob, any objection to it?
I have no objection,
No
no.
objection. So be fine if there's no proposed changes with this. If the DOT needs to do something in the future, then I'm sure they'll let the applicant know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's down the road, literally.
Yes, no pun intended.
No pun intended. Okay. Anybody have any?
I have one question, and I'm not sure if Mr. Ford can answer this, but looking at the plan. So I know by statute, it requires 1 handicap spot. Obviously, this particular use has a lot of people coming in for prosthetics and other things. Is 1 handicap spot enough, or should there be consideration of adding maybe a second one? And I don't know if the transition is enough to 1 handicap spot would be there, and would that still allow you enough parking spaces if you had dedicated another one to a handicap?
Yeah, we actually discussed that with the applicant. They only expect like 2 appointments at any given time. Perhaps, so there wasn't a discussion that there was a desire or need for another handicap spot, but as you mentioned that, and I'm looking at the plan, one opportunity would be to simply, I'll say, move over, Bob, the striped access aisle, switch the parking space in the striped
center.
access aisle, and then perhaps we'd have 2 handicap spaces on either side of the existing, of the striped access aisle.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
Just
without really any,
If the
just a
applicant would do that,
striping
just-
change.
Things
Yeah.
happen, appointments take longer
Yeah.
than normal sometimes.
Sure, yeah, no, good point.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other question. I know it's been in existence, but you make a right and left outside of that facility?
You can make a left out of the site, but this is just
be
north of the
careful.
traffic signal. Yeah,
Yeah.
certain times of day, you wouldn't be advisable to try it at all, but
Okay,
other times
just-
of day you can.
thank
So right now, there's no restriction, but we understand in the not too distant future, hopefully, it will be a concrete barrier that'll make it a restriction.
Well, yeah, it should be 4 lanes someday.
That's right.
Yeah, but the only good thing is with the traffic lights, you do get a periodic break in some of the traffic, so
You do.
You can try to get through, but
Yeah.
it's not ideal, but
Thank you.
you can make it happen.
Does anybody from the public have any comments for this professional, the engineer? Anybody? Okay. I don't know if we need to see any other witnesses.
Anything else to add?
Anything else to add, or,
That concludes the applicant's case.
I know you had somebody else, but, yeah, I thought you said you had somebody else just in case, but,
We had the architect in
Right.
case the board had any questions, but I think Mr. Ford addressed the architectural issues.
yeah, I would agree. Okay, Counselor, so if there's no questions from the public, do we need to close it from the public? Can we have a motion to close?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're closed to the public. Counselor, you want to just kind of wrap it up?
Yes.
You can make a motion to approve?
Wrong counsel.
I'll be very brief.
Okay.
We've got an application for an amended preliminary and final site plan. It's a small addition, it's a permitted use. The variances are going to be continued, the waivers will be continued, and we think the application is a good application. It keeps a good use here in Hillsborough, right on 206, converting from a lease position to an ownership position. So we respectfully request that the application be granted with the usual conditions.
I believe the motion was for a 550-foot addition to the current structure with a requested waiver for the TIS statement, the environmental statement, and the community impact statement.
Just gotta get it close, that's all.
To add a security light, to change the existing monument sign, requesting a waiver of the loading space, and two landscaping requirements to replace invasive species, to reaffirm the previous variances that were granted earlier, and to have DOT compliance if needed in future, as well as changes to the parking striping.
Okay, very good.
Well, the DOT compliant, I didn't hear that?
If needed in future.
All right, it won't stop us from
No.
building and
No, I think
occupying.
that's- If it was required in future,
'Cause
that
this could be
the applicant would be
forever,
compliant
yeah.
with those requirements.
Mr. Chairman, the reason why we brought this up is because there's two factors here. One, we just want to make sure that since there's a basin close to the road, that there's going to be no interference with the basin with any DOT approvals that'll be coming up, and also the turning outside of the ingress and egress out of the parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's something that the applicant's just going to have to deal with when the
As
time comes.
everybody else on
Yeah.
206, so we're not
They
unique in that
recognize-
category.
As long as you understand that, then,
And then we can amend that to cooperating with the town should that compliance be needed in future.
there you go. You all right with that?
We're good.
Okay. All right, with that being said, then, can I have a motion to approve the H.A. Drallmeyer LLC 19PB-08 MSP as stated?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Have a roll call, please?
Mr. Scobah?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Senator Romita?
Yes.
Committeeman Lapani?
Yes.
Mayor Delcor?
Thank you for keeping your business in Hillsborough. We appreciate it very much, yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Have a good
Okay.
evening.
You too.
And I hope I never have to come see you.
But if you have to, you're glad they're there.
Yes, I've heard actually, years ago, I was there. 20 years ago, I was there for a neighbor.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we have another applicant tonight. We have, it's hard to read here. Jack, this one has a draft on it. We have the constructural dynamics, which is also known as Gibraltar Rock updates, 19-PB-09 MSP. Counselor?
Yes, Richard Schatzman, attorney for the applicant and owner. Good evening, and tonight we have two witnesses. One is Greg Stiers, who is our professional engineer, will be sworn in, and the other is Sean Erlin, who is vice president of Sylvie, who is the parent company of Gibraltar Rock. So Mr. Stiers will go through an overview to let you know what's going on in more detail, and Mr. Erlin will answer some of the questions, and then we'll go through the professional report from Mr. Gorman, Mr. Euro, mentioned Mr. Weiniger's report and the Environmental Commission report. We have no problems with any of them. This is a minor site plan approval, but as per my method of doing things, I serve property owners within 200 feet and publish in the Hillsborough Gazette. And I filed an application, affidavit of service, an affidavit of publication, and I sent it to Ms. Paget. I assume everything is all right. Am I correct, Mr. Gorman?
Yes, you are.
Okay. And we had, part of this property, as Mr. Stiers will explain, is in Montgomery Township, and part is in Hillsborough. We're here basically for a quarry upgrade, and the basic construction will be a certain new press building that will be part of the approved operations that will have equipment with a press and adjacent holding tank to remove slurry from the process water from the quarry operations. And Mr. Stiers will go into that further. The building will house equipment and
Mr. Schatzman, speak into the mic.
Administrative consent order related to the discharge of process water from the site.
Mr. Schatzman, you have to speak into the mic. The audience can't hear you, that's all.
You keep turning your head the other way.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
pull
sorry,
it
I'm sorry.
pull it closer to you.
All right, so you're right. Then, as Mr. Stiers will explain, it will then be the last item that we have to get approved for fully complying with the New Jersey DEP consent order. And what it does is it purifies the water coming off the blasting, and it used to come when 3M did the work for its project, go into the Roaring Brook. Now it does not, and the water is now clean now. It doesn't have the impurities from the blasting. We're also looking for submission waivers, and those are for environmental impact statement, because it's a 46,000 small building and it's over impervious coverage, so we think that the board can make an informed decision without an environmental impact statement. There's no lighting plan. Mr. Stiers will go into the stormwater, why we didn't submit a stormwater report, and also there's a waiver, a submission waiver for the community plan, as Mr. Ford said, this doesn't involve school children, which the ordinance requires basically that, and since it's an industrial quarry operation. So that's basically the application, which will go into more detail with Mr. Stiers and Mr. Erlin. So, Mr. Stiers, would you please come and be sworn in accordance with the municipal land use law?
Swearing testimony tonight, that you give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Do you state and spell your name for me?
Craig Stiers, S-T-I-R-E-S.
Counselor, you want to give the qualifications of your
You want to
professional?
hear his qualifications, or you're satisfied?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Starge, you're a licensed professional engineer of the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you've appeared before planning boards and zoning boards throughout the state, including Hillsborough?
Yes.
And you're qualified as an expert as such?
Yes.
And the plans were either prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes.
You're familiar with the municipal land use law of the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
You're familiar with the zoning ordinance and planning ordinance of Hillsborough Township?
Yes.
And you obviously have visited the site,
Yes.
okay?
Thank you.
You want to,
Good, we're good, thank you.
Thank you.
okay. You want to give an overview of the project, please?
Sure. I have a rendering over there if you want to mark that, or I can mark it.
You want to mark it as A1, October 10th, 2019, and describe what it is for the record.
Okay. I have actually 3 renderings. It's basically to bring you into the site because, as you know, the site is so big. So, like I said, I'm kind of work my way in to familiarize yourself with the site. So the first one is a topographic survey with the aerial underneath it, just to show you the grand scheme of the quarry itself. As you're, I'm sure, all well aware, it's a former 3M quarry, and it's located off Route 601. 601 is on the right-hand side of the rendering here. It's known as Lot 55, Block 174 in Hillsborough Township, as well as Lot 45, Block 1001 in Montgomery Township. Township line goes through the property in this direction, or right here. The site, like I said, is accessed via Route 601 through a haul road, which comes into the site, splits off for some lower process buildings and the offices, but mainly continues on to a truck scale. Once the trucks are through the scale, they continue up the haul road, and the process area is located in this area. The main quarry is in this location here, with obviously much more to go. The former fines pile from the prior owner is located in this area right here.
Pardon me, Mr. Stars, is the microphone working?
You gotta keep it close to us.
Yeah.
Should be a button on the side.
It's probably covered by the shield.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
It's on.
Yep.
We can hear you.
Right,
Okay.
thank you.
The applicant, or the owner slash applicant, is purchased the property in 2009, and pretty much right off the bat, worked with Somerset County to subdivide the property in both Hillsborough and Montgomery Township, and conveyed over 470 acres to the county to merge in with the Sourland Mast. And the plan you see here is really the remainder of that. It's tough to see the property lines, but pretty much tightened it and gave it a large buffer around the outside of the quarry. Shortly thereafter, they began working with the DEP, and over this 10-year period, we have been working on this project to hopefully get to a fruition tonight. They entered into an ACO, as Mr. Schatzen said, about the water quality coming from the site. So that's one leg of the DEP. We've also worked with the DEP, obtained wetland permits, or an LOI for the site. As part of the applications that have been approved already, there's a, actually I can turn this over, kind of bring it in and closer now.
Before you go for testimony on that, Mr. Stars, you want to mark that as A2 and October 10th, 2019, and explain what that is?
Yes. This is the same aerial photograph with a scale of, the original was 1 to 300, this one's 1 to 100. So it kind of, again, like I said, brings you in a little bit tighter. And this really is the area in Montgomery Township that has been approved as part of the overall processing or overall project. Excuse me. There is a sediment basin at the bottom next to the Hall Road that is failing. So, part of that is to remove this and also get DEP approval from dam safety to remove the dam. So that will ultimately, the dam will be removed, a riprap channel put in, and like I said, taken out of service. Another component is to extend the rail in the lower section to allow for more cars to come onto the site, allow to more loading, less times crossing Route 601. So again, an improvement as far as the efficiency and less disturbance, crossing Route 601. Moving on, they're also looking to do a conveyor from the process area in the top down to the lower area for better efficiencies as far as loading, getting the product down the hill, less truck traffic. And most importantly, what we have here is a process basin. So that is really the crux of the project. And that is to take the processed water on the site, be able to filter and clean the processed water. And I'll let Sean go into the further details of the processing. But like I said, this is really the crux of the ACO with the DEP. It takes the processed water, which is in the process area and various areas throughout, including the quarry, brings the water, like I said, filters it out. And then ultimately, the last piece of the puzzle, like I said, all these have been approved. This was the DEP, Somerset County, DNR Canal Commission, Soil Conservation District, Montgomery Township, and now ultimately Hillsborough Township is the last piece.
You want to mark that exhibit as A3, 10/10/2019, and explain what that is?
Sure. This is essentially the sheet 4 in your package, again with the aerial shown on it, just to kind of give you a perspective of where and what things are. So like, as far as bearings on the plan, this is again the township line right here. So we are now into the Hillsborough Township. This is their main process area where they take the materials from the quarry, break it down into the different types of stones before being trucked out or shipped out. The application before you tonight, like I said, is in Hillsborough. It's a 4,800 square foot building in this location right here. For the ultimately the press materials or press equipment, as well as a settling tank that is right next to it. As you can see, it's in a fully disturbed area. For the most part, if you had a chance to get up there, it's basically just rock face. So, like Mr. Schatzman said, there's really no dirt, so it's really impervious to impervious. But that's, like I said, it's the crux of the project is down in Montgomery. And then, like I said, this is the last piece, which is in Hillsborough, and hence why we're before you tonight. So, I don't know if there's any questions.
Well, we'll go through some of the memos of Mr. Euro and Mr. Gorman. Maybe you can answer those questions and clarify different things they want clarified. Okay?
Sure.
I go through them.
Yep.
And then the board and the professionals get the full picture. Mr. Gorman has a memorandum of October 2nd, 2019. He points out the community impact statement. You need a submission waiver, environmental impact statement, a lighting plan, and surface stormwater management plan. The community impact statement has to do with school children. Obviously, that has nothing to do with school children, correct?
Correct.
The environmental impact statement, as I stated before, in your opinion, since we're on impervious, there's no necessity for a community environmental impact statement.
Correct.
And the lighting plan, as I understand it, there's only emergency lighting. We're not having lighting on this project, am I correct?
Correct.
And surface stormwater management plan, you want to just discuss that very briefly?
As you can see, it's in a fully disturbed area. The process basin itself, which is in Montgomery, we did do a stormwater report for that, which was approved by all the agencies, which is downstream of this, and the basin does take into account, but as I tried to describe, the process basin is more for the process of the operations of the quarry and to clean the stone, and also to improve the runoff from the site and meet the ACO that the applicant has agreed to with the DEP.
Mr. Gorman asked the applicant will need to offer testimony as to what features on the property contain these non-conforming features. He points out it's a permitted use in the Q zone, which we are. However, it should be noted that the bulk schedule on sheet 1 depicts a building of 82 feet and a storage buffer of approximately 75 feet. As I understand it, they existed before we bought the property that was there when 3M owned it. Am I correct?
Yes, the 85-foot building is the process building, and that was also approved as part of the minor subdivision when they conveyed the property to the county, which was before Hillsborough.
The applicant will need to provide testimony on how the area where we're going to do the building, clear access. Do you want to explain that?
As I described, as I worked my way in, you could see that the haul road that comes into the site ultimately ends up in this area. There's a well-defined wide road all the way into the quarry where you have large equipment that goes, two direction. So it's a stable haul road. It's concrete all the way up to the beginning of the process area where it converts over to more of a gravel road, but it definitely has adequate access up to the building.
Will you comment on the building for the sound, vibration, and dust control? Is there any new things that the building will do or exacerbate anything that the building will do to the sound, vibration, and dust control?
No, and the building's also I would say more than 4,000 feet from any local residents.
Okay, and additional comments, the North Arrow applicant will need to offer testimony if the hours of operation of proposed improvements will differ from those of the quarry, and the answer is?
No, it'd be consistent with the quarry use.
And for reference purposes, the North Arrow should be supplied on the page 4 of the plan set, which we'll do.
Yep.
Then we have a memorandum from Mr. Euro, and after describing the project as Mr. Gorman has, he asked for quarry uses, indicates that the parking requirement should be determined at site plan review, and he cites section 188-68.j of the ordinance. The applicant should provide testimony on the existing parking on site and any additional parking required on part of this application. You want to comment on that?
I would not say it's applicable to this particular application. While we are putting up a building, the building is pretty much unmanned, and I would look at it more like one of the conveyors, honestly, on the site. The building is just really to house the equipment inside.
The applicant should provide testimony on truck loading areas required as part of the proposed improvements. All loading areas shall be clearly indicated on the plans.
Again, I would say that's not applicable. Well, just really part of the processing of the overall.
Mr. Chair, if I can just, as opposed to going through every item, I just have 2 or 3 questions.
All right.
Have you had a chance to review my overall letter?
Yes.
Okay. So really the one question I have, item number 11 with regards to the 12-inch pressure line, is that going to be above grade or below grade?
It's above grade, and it's actually, a lot of it is in place already. So it's really just going to be an extension of what's there now.
Okay. Most of my other items are really cleanup items on the plan because of the layering and the printing.
Right.
The existing and proposed features all sort of got blended together.
Right.
Do you have any problems with clarifying the plans as per detailed in my letter?
No, not at all.
No, there's no problem with your memo.
No.
It's You know,
Mr. Chair,
just-
I have no further comments. then.
Okay,
That was,
fine.
I just need a clarification on that high
Okay,
pressure line.
fine. We'll take care of your plans. Should we be approved, you know, we'll take care of everything. And the only other thing I have is a statement by Mr. Winiger, on the access for fire equipment. You want to comment on that? That's pursuant to a September 16th, 2019 memo.
Is that the fire one?
Yeah, the fire one.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually got an email from Deborah today, from Chief Winiger. Because what I did is I received his letter, and then I sent him the overall plan diagramming the Hall Road coming in.
Okay.
And the emails for today he received at 4:05 said he was okay with all the comments, so.
Okay, so we'll
Okay.
make that part of the record then.
I can confirm that, memo.
Sorry.
I can confirm that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Corman.
And then the last one is the Environmental Commission, where they had a meeting on October 23rd, 2019, and there's a memo on October 8th, after explaining what already has been narrated by Mr. Stiers. The Commission is pleased to see the facility upgrades which will improve the quality of the water discharged from the site. And that's all I have of Mr. Stiers. Questions from you or the audience?
Mr. Ure, you want,
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions
Sure.
for the applicant's engineer. You state that this is a building on the property for the press building. Is it a building or just an unmanned structure at this point that just has access for maintenance or something like that? There's not-
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's an
Okay.
unmanned structure, correct.
Okay, it's unmanned structure, so just maintenance only, and no other personnel will be there full-time, not as additional storage within the area or something like that?
That's correct. It would just be maintained by the current staff.
Sure, and all the improvements that are shown on here are in the quarry zone?
Yes,
And then the quarry extraction area?
yes.
Okay, and just to go over for the board's clarification, is that the filing items in my report are the items that will be specifically for Hillsborough Township? That the basin that's being closed off and the railway are part of Montgomery Township?
That is correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And for your information, that was approved by a resolution of the Montgomery Township Planning Board, which was submitted as part of the application. But for the
Microphone, please.
record-
Microphone.
For the record.
Talk into the microphone, Council.
I'm sorry. For the record, this was approved, sorry. This was approved by the Montgomery Township Planning Board by a resolution memorialization on March 2nd, 2015. And we submitted that with the application, the copy of the signed resolution. So that's in your file, Mr. Corbin.
Thank you.
Just one question. So we talked about the fact that from a business operation standpoint, it's not adding to any noise disturbance or any other general operations. Can you just talk either the unmanned structure or the conveyor that's going to be created? Is the height of those, or will the height of those exceed what you already have on the site, and does it create any type of visibility? I know obviously we're surrounded by the Salomons, but just for the record, is there any visual that will be created by what you're adding?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, even just quickly show you for instance, it's just below, actually, I'll just turn. The 82-foot building is right here. So that would, as far as a visual coming from Route 601, if you were to see anything, you'd probably see that building
Can
first.
we indicate on the record which
I'm-
exhibit you're
This is
looking at?
A2, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So as far as a visual, if you were to see anything, I mean, right now, I think the only thing is you see the top of the water tower, but that's it. But this would be below the water tower, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions from the board at this time, I want to make a motion to open it to the public, please. Have a
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we are open to the public, so if you have any questions for this particular applicant, please just come up to the mic, state your name and address, please.
J.W. Price, 370 Dutchtown Zion Road.
Okay.
I've been an owner of the property for almost 40 years. First question, How many buildings? Just one?
One new building, yes.
One new building. Approximate cost of this construction?
I would leave that to Sean Erling to answer.
Okay, no answer. The building is going to, material is wood, block. What are we going to do with the building as far as construction materials being used?
Again, I'll leave that with Sean.
That's for Sean too. Total square footage?
4,800 square feet.
Now, is there going to be more noise than what there is now? Because I can hear the trucks waking me up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning when they downshift, when they start, the brakes squealing, and it's just a joke with the loaders and all this other stuff. And now you're going to put a conveyor in and make more noise. See, you don't live there. I live there. So it's a nightmare. I can't sleep after 5 o'clock in the morning. My other neighbors can't either. All right? I'll ask Sean more questions when he gets here.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Just please state your name and address.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mary Lou Ferrara. My address is 7 Walnut Street, Hopewell, New Jersey. I'm here representing the Sauerland Conservancy. I'm glad you mentioned that this is obviously right in the middle of the Sauerlands.
Please talk in a mic.
You got to speak into the mic a little
Can
louder.
you hear me? Is that good?
You just got to stay close to it.
Stay
that's
right
all.
up
Yep,
to
stay
it.
right.
Okay. A few questions from our members that I was asked to bring this evening. But before I get to that, the attorney stated at the beginning of his comments that when 3M had the property, the water was dirty, and that today the water is clean. Obviously, that wasn't sworn testimony. So is this expert going to say that? And if that's true, to what standard would you say the water is clean?
I can't speak. Right now, we are in the process of doing the upgrades. So once the upgrades are completed, it is expected that the water coming off the site would be cleaner.
So that would be a premature statement by the attorney to say that now the water is clean.
Correct.
Okay. So part of your plan is to make the water cleaner by having this lined basin that will treat the outflows?
Yes.
What is the basin lined with?
It is expected to have a clay liner.
Is it expected to, or it will?
It will. That was part of the ACO.
So so when you say expected to, you simply misspoke and you meant
Yes,
it will? Okay.
correct.
And was a study done with this new lining to determine its efficacy?
I will leave that to Sean because he is better with the process and the approvals with the ACO.
Okay, I probably have more questions for Sean then. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Again, just please state your name, address.
My name is Mike Pissarro. It's P-I-S-A-U-R-O. I'm the Policy Director for the Watershed Institute, 31 Titus Mill Road, Pennington, New Jersey. Mr. Stiers, I have quite a few questions. So there's going to be this pump house. Do you know what the capacity of that pump house is from a gallons per minute, gallons per day is?
No, I don't.
Okay. And if I understand this process, this pump house will be taking water from the quarry and filtering it, is that correct?
In essence, yes.
Okay. Do you know what the capacity of the pump that is taking the water from the quarry to the pump house?
No, I don't.
Okay. There is a holding tank alongside the pump house? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is the capacity of that holding tank?
Again, this is part of the process of the processing of the activities, and again, I would leave that to Sean to answer.
Okay. So, I guess there's two different processes that maybe I'm thinking of. One is the quarry has filled with water and has to be pumped out. Is that one of the processes that we going through this station?
It's not filled with water, but there is a basin in the bottom.
Okay. No, but the quarry itself, the active area of stone removal, that does not fill with water periodically? That has to be pumped out?
Not specifically, no, but there is a basin in the very bottom of it.
All right. Do you know what, I may have asked this in a different way, but
Do you know what that pump, never mind. So one of the waivers you are requesting is a waiver of submitting a stormwater management plan. Is that correct?
To Hillsborough Township, but we have done a stormwater management plan as part of the overall project.
And the one that went to Montgomery included the pump house?
Yes.
And what I understand is being proposed with a permit from DEP is to change the structure of the stormwater management system itself. Is that accurate?
I think it's to change the process and the ultimate discharge. The basin itself, as far as my capacity, I did assist by them providing me information, but there's also a stormwater management component, which is essentially above the water level in the new basin. So when we cleared that area, there was obviously there would be an increase in stormwater runoff. So that was accounted for in the process basin as well.
Because what I understand is being submitted to DEP for a permit is, for example, Basin 2 right now is changing from process water to stormwater and discharging to a different outfall. Would that be accurate?
Again, I would leave that to Sean.
Okay. And the basin that is lined, is that in Montgomery or Hillsborough?
Montgomery.
Okay. Do you know what the capacity of that basin is?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Is what Gibraltar is proposing in the Hillsborough portion of this site any changes to the existing stormwater management basins or system?
The application before you is for a 4,800 square foot building and the tank next to it.
And so I'm clear, where's the water that the pump house is going to be processing? Where's that water coming from on that site?
Multiple points.
Other stormwater basins or other buildings? Where's it coming from on that site?
The other basins are not necessarily stormwater basins. They're more, if anything, it'd be sediment basins. And as far as the sediment that's coming from the site, you can see in the rendering up there, A2, there's a green area. That's one of the sediment basins. But there are multiple basins throughout, in and around the upper area, which are mostly sediment basins and not stormwater basins.
I'm not sure I understand the difference. Can you explain that to me?
Stormwater management is to convey the quantity of flow from the site, where a sediment basin is to control the sediment from the site.
The stormwater rules require total suspended solid or sediment control, as well as water quality recharge and quantity reductions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the sediment basins you're talking about, is that from stormwater runoff or from operational processes or both?
The way I understand it, they were installed, first of all, prior to the current stormwater rules and prior to me taking over the project, but the way I understand it, they were sediment basins to control sediment from the site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, anybody else from the public for this particular professional? Please state your name and address, sir.
My name is James Cook. I live on Dutchtown Road in Hillsborough Township, New Jersey. I come here to make a couple of statements. I also come here to tell you how bad I've been mistreated. I was born and raised in Hillsborough Township. I spent 16 months in Korea of my life to help defend this country. And I don't think Hillsborough was one of the best places to live. I think it's the best place in this country to live. I built a home in 1973. I figured I was going to live out the remaining part of my life on the mountain. Was I wrong? My wife had an ablation. I had open heart surgery from worry. I don't say it's them, but I don't say it isn't. The noise is tremendous. I've been driving truck my whole life too, and I know about truck driving. When you drive a truck and go downhill, you don't use the breakers, you don't want to use the air in the tank. You downshift, it makes a tremendous noise you wouldn't believe. And this is going on constantly, all the time. The noise is just, you'd have to come up and see. A year ago, I come home to 2 feet of water in my kitchen. My ice maker broke. A sliver of rock cut the line in my ice maker. $3,500 damage. I was advised to get a whole house filtration system. I did. I wish you could come and see my filter when I change it every 1 or 2 months. It's unbelievable. When 3M was there, I never had a bit of problem. Of course, they only blasted 1 or 2 times a month, if that. I've been there, like I say, I've been a resident in this township my whole life, and I don't think I've been treated fair. I don't like the way I've been treated, and I don't like the way they just turn me completely off for all my complaints. And to top it off, I get a letter from their attorney, they're going to sue me. Because I took a letter that was dated, a meeting that was here, and I sent it to my neighbors. They gave me the name and address of the complaints. They said I was the one complaining. To me, they malign me. This is my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a David against Goliath. That's what I feel I am, and I just hope and pray my words aren't turned on deaf ears, because it's not right the way it's. Give me back 3M. That's all I can say. Thank you very much for your time and trouble. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else from the public for this particular professional? Okay, Counselor, you want to call your next professional?
Yeah. Sean Earl, please.
Please give me a swear you in.
Swearing to give tonight the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please name and spell your name for me.
Sean Erlen, S-E-A-N, last name E-A-R-L-E-N. Thank you.
You want to state for the record what your position is with the applicant owner?
I'm the Vice President of Real Estate, Environmental and Public Affairs for the Sylvie Group companies, of which Gibraltar Rock is one.
Okay. You want to try to cover, you want to make a statement and then try to cover some of the questions these folks have with respect to capacity, et cetera, and so forth?
I'll go over the project in a little bit different perspective than the engineer did, and hopefully that answers a lot of the questions that were raised by both the board and members of the public. As many of you are aware, the water quality discharge problem up at the quarry has been going on for decades. It is a problem that we did inherit from 3M, but we have also exacerbated as part of our operation because we do process stone in a different manner than 3M did previously. In 2011, we entered an administrative consent order with the DEP to find ways to clean up the discharge of the water leaving the site. It took 6 years to come to an agreement and a plan with the DEP, which is why we're here before you today for the last component of that, which is the tank and the press building proposed in Hillsborough. The quarry has, we heard Mr. Steyer's reference process water. There are two types of process water that we have on site. The first of which is what we use to clean the stone. The stone in its final, the final aspect of the manufacturing or processing gets cleaned. All of that water gets collected. It goes into existing basins on the site. Those basins settle out all the fine particulate within the stone, and currently we are recycling the majority of that water back into the process to be reused and reused and reused. However, we are forced with cleaning these basins on a very regular basis. It's time-consuming and very costly. In addition, we're not capturing all of what we should be as required as part of the administrative consent order. The second process water, second aspect of the process water at the site is the quarry sump, which is there's a basin all the way at the base of the active quarry. That's where rainwater collects. When it gets to be to a certain level, we will pump that water. It will go to what was referred to previously as Basin 2. Basin 2, when it fills up, it overflows, discharges to Roaring Brook, which feeds to Cruiser Brook, and that's the murky water that, if any of you have seen pictures, which I'm sure you have, that's the area of concern that you see most members of the public bring up. So what this project is going to do to alleviate those problems, and I'll take a step back, the administrative consent order with the DEP was designed for us to clean up the water as it related to suspended solids. Suspended solids create the turbidity in the water, and that's the problem that we have today. We are required to bring all water that leaves the site at the conclusion of this project in conformance with DEP standards and an NPDES permit, which is currently in draft form with the DEP, but will be completed, we're told it will be completed by the time this project's over. So we'll have a new NPDES, which is a stormwater discharge permit for the site, and we will be discharging water in conformance with DEP standards at the completion of the project. Both the water or starting with the first process water that I talked about, which was used for cleaning the stone, that process water will still be collected. It will now be pumped up onto the tank, as part of, which was referenced as part of this new application. In that tank, a flocculant will be added, which will help settle out, all the fine particulate. All that fine particulate will be conveyed out of the building, or I'm sorry, will be pressed out of the water first and then conveyed out of the building. We then plan to recycle that material, mix it in with our dense graded aggregate, which is called DGA. It's a road-based material, and it will be shipped out as a product to our customers. The water will be then pumped to the two new basins that have been referenced that are in Montgomery. Those basins, that basin is a non-discharge basin. They are over-designed intentionally to not have any discharge. If we had max production water and a stormwater event, those basins will be able to handle it. That water will then be pumped back into our process to be used for washing the stone again. So not only are we recycling the process water as part of this project, cleaning it, recycling the process water, we're also recycling the waste product that is being pressed out of the water as it's being mixed in with a product, as I said, a dense graded aggregate. The process water that is currently collected in the basin at the bottom of the quarry will now bypass basin number 2, so it will not be discharged into Roaring Brook and thus to Cruiser Brook. That water will also be pumped to the two new basins in Montgomery, again, giving it opportunity to settle out. That water will then be, again, mixed with the other process water that I talked. We pumped into our process and used as part of cleaning, washing the stone. That, I hope, answers a lot of the questions. In terms of, there was a question earlier about what the size of the capabilities of the building. I'd have to check with on the design of the press equipment, but it's sized for our production. The tank itself is a 100,000 gallon tank. With that, I'll leave it to any questions.
I'll just kind of clarify, so, excuse me, Mayor, the plan, so none of the water that you're using and reusing ever leaves the site? Basically, you're just recycling water from basin to tank, back and forth?
Yes, sir.
So it never actually leaves the site into the rivers? It's basically just borrowing the water and then refiltering it?
That is correct. So our NPDES permit will be a true NPDES permit, which is what it will manage stormwater runoff off the site, not process water off the site, which is what occurs today.
Thank you.
So I just, very similar question, but just want to clarify. So what had been going into Basin 2, and then ultimately there could be overflow that would go into the brooks, that process will no longer take place, so there's no additional overflow that's going to go into the brooks that's then going to create that sort of murkiness.
You're
Is that
correct,
correct?
sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So therefore, that should alleviate the problems that these people are having.
That's correct, and in fact, that will be part of the regulation with DEP.
Good, thank you.
And I'll ask one, just in case, is that monitored and/or certified on a regular basis? Is there inspections or anything going on to that?
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, the NPDES permit, which was promulgated as part of the administrative consent order, is not complete yet. There's a draft form out. I know certain members of the audience have already reviewed it as well. That requires, the draft form that's out there now requires quarterly monitoring of the outfall, and then there's also annual inspections by the DEP.
And those reports would be submitted to the township for a record? Or?
Yes, sir.
I just had a question. I know we're talking a lot about water and pressing and that sort of thing. One of the things that you had mentioned that's going to be on the site is a conveyor system. And if I'm looking, I believe that's Exhibit A2 that's up on the board. And it's going to cut off a section of where the road, a couple of the residents had mentioned problems with noise and J-braking and downshifting and that sort of thing. How much will that eliminate trucks from kind of going around that bend with that conveyor system in?
We anticipate significantly. Our highest grossing, highest selling products are three-quarter stone or three-quarter clean. Mm-hmm. We anticipate those products going down there so trucks don't have to go up the road. Only trucks looking for specialty products will have to go up the mountain.
What would be your guesstimate on reduction of truck travel on that section? Are we talking 10%? You're talking 80%? I mean, I know it's kind of throwing a dart at the board.
It really is. That is, I'd be giving you a truthful answer if I answered that. I don't know that answer.
Okay, but it will be less currently than what it is.
That's correct.
Safe to assume?
That's the concept behind it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I mean, I remember walking the site, several times as part of the Environmental Commission myself, and, dealing with this issue that was, plagued the site for many years. So I think, the environmental remedy to clean up the water is a prudent one. And, I commend you for that. We certainly encourage you to work with some of these other issues as well. I know it might not be specifically here tonight for those, some of the concerns addressed by the neighbors, but, noise and all those other things are, again, not pertinent to this process, but are we encourage you to kind of work with the neighbors and residents to try to remedy any of that as well. So, but I know we worked with the solar array. We moved it to another site because we didn't want all the trees cut down, and so it's always an ongoing process here.
So to speak to the comment on the Jake breaking previously, we are currently working with Montgomery Police to curb that. It's not something that we permit on our site. It's not something that's permitted on 601. We've let the truckers that come on site are outside haulers. We are putting additional signage on our road, and as I said, we're working with Montgomery Police to try to curb that issue.
Okay, appreciate it. Does anybody else have anything? If not, then does anybody from the public have any specific questions for this professional? Please come up to the mic, state your name and address.
J.W. Price, 370 Dutchtown, Zion Road. I know Sean, he's a nice guy. I called him several times, but he doesn't return his calls. All right? I have a blast calendar from Wallet Way. They shake the whole top of that mountain. If you guys would like to look at the blast calendar?
I don't know if we could accept that, Council.
Do we have to enter it into?
Yeah, I think we.
I think it's
I
got
don't
to be.
think they should be going any bigger. I think they should be downsized.
Mr. Price, can you give that to the attorney instead of giving it to us this way? They can mark it as an exhibit.
It's not technically part of the application.
It's not part of the application.
It's not part of
But
the
I'll take
I've
it.
seen this blast calendar before. This
Yeah.
isn't new to him. You want this? I need it back. Okay?
Yeah, all right.
All right. Right now, I would guess somewhere around 400 or 500 trucks a day, okay? And once this conveyor goes in, there's going to be more noise. You can count on that, okay? And there's going to be more trucks tearing up the road. This is not a joke. I mean, it's unbelievable. You guys want to come over to my house at 5 in the morning?
Mr.
You're
Price,
all welcome to. I'll have
obviously,
breakfast for you and everything.
Mr. Price, obviously, 400 to 500 trucks a day, you don't, I'm sure you don't have a counter there, so,
Well, if you want me
okay,
to,
so this is
the other-
testimony, right? This is
The
just
other
what...
day, I was on 601 between the quarry and between the Obdike lumber, and I counted 7 trucks just in that little stretch as I was headed to 206.
Well,
I
7
mean,
trucks.
it's just ridiculous. And to give these guys waivers, when I went for a minor subdivision 30 years ago, they're worried about Peg Van Patten was worried about the weeds, the turtles, the red-tailed hawks, and you're going to hand these guys waivers? I don't think so. I think they should have to do exactly what they're supposed to do. I mean, this is just absolute insanity.
Do you have a question for the applicant? That's what you're up here.
Yeah, no problem. What's the cost of the construction?
I don't know, I have an exact cost, Mr. Price. It's north of 7 figures.
Okay, so it's going to be more than $1 million.
Yes, sir.
Is that going to be taxable to Hillsborough? Okay, 1 mil, okay. What's the construction? Is it wood or is it going to be block? What is it going to be?
The building is going to be a steel building.
Steel building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the footage I know is 4,800 square foot. Now with this conveyor, is there going to be more noise with the conveyor or less noise than the trucks? Because you live in South Jersey, I understand. You're not hearing this noise, okay? Down there in Medford, okay? So is there more noise or less noise?
We did do a noise study as part of our application to Montgomery for the conveyor, and there was no issue with the noise study. They accepted the conveyor.
They did, okay. All right. I thank you guys on the
All right,
board.
thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Mary Lou Ferrara again, 7 Walnut Street, Hopewell. You said that when you get your DEP permit, that the water that is ejected from the process will meet DEP standards, but you don't yet know what those standards are?
I believe the standards for the state are 80 parts per million on suspended solids, but don't quote me on that. I don't work for the DEP. I apologize.
But you have stated that you will be able to meet that standard.
That's correct. The process was designed to meet the DEP standards.
I can ask you about the clay lining.
As much as I know about it, yes.
Well, obviously, I'm sure the reason we're here today is because you want to fix the problems with the water, correct? And part of that is lining it. And someone has to be here to explain that that will be efficient and effective, correct?
The basin was approved as part of an application to Montgomery Township. It was also reviewed by the Department of Environmental Protection. They approved it. The lining was a specification that the DEP asked for. We accommodated, and it is contemplated in the draft NPDES permit that will be issued by the department.
Okay, so it's a clay lining.
That is correct.
Do you use polyacrylamide in your processing of the water?
We will be as part of this project.
And does polyacrylamide degrade into acrylamide under proper conditions?
Ma'am, I'm not a scientist. That study was done and overseen by the department, and they blessed the use of the chemical that we're going to be using in this process.
I understand. I'm simply asking a question of whether or not.
Ma'am, I'm not a scientist. I don't know that answer.
Well, I'll tell you that it does, and that it's a neurotoxin and a type 2A carcinogen.
If you're going to need this, we had the same objection before the Montgomery Township Planning Board by Ms. Van Patten. And their ruling there is that the DEP oversees that. We had an expert come from North Carolina State University.
Could I ask my questions of your applicant, and then when you want to sum up, you could do that, because I'm not asking you any questions.
It's pertinent to what you're asking, ma'am.
You know, you're
Sorry.
bringing something
It
up
is
that's
pertinent to
already
what
been
you're asking,
discussed.
so let him explain.
So my question is, if acrylamide is created from the polyacrylamide and it is released into the groundwater, although you've stated the DEP thinks that's fine, who then will remediate the groundwater problem, and who will provide clean water to the residents? Will that be DEP, or will that be you?
Ma'am, we're going to construct the project, and we're going to operate the project in conformance with the department's permits
I
and
understand
approvals.
that.
So outside of that, I'm not going to get in a bunch of what-ifs.
Well, part of having a permit would be a what-if, correct? I mean, you understand that there's the possibility that your system can fail, if your system failed, you have no responsibility to consider what would happen to the drinking water of the people in the Sourlands?
Ma'am, all these things were considered as part of the pilot study and the subsequent DEP report and the approval that's been issued by the department.
So your answer
I'm
is
gonna-
that there is
sorry,
no
I'm gonna
solution?
object at this point,
ahead,
because I
Counsel.
don't know if she's testifying. Is
No,
she-
I'm asking a question. His answer to my
I
question,
think it
is
was
there a
answered. It was asked and
solution?
answered.
Are you working for them?
Yes. I'm actually working for the town.
No, I asked if you're working for the applicant.
Well, are you
Yeah, she's
asking me
a
a question?
she's
Are
a
you asking me
township
My
attorney,
question
but she
is,
has to
there
decide
is-
whether you're up there testifying or
I'm not
asking a
testifying.
question.
I
So,
asked,
you
given
know,
that
that's from a legal
acrylamides-
standpoint, that's what she
Given that
is.
acrylamides are created in your process, do you have a backup plan for if it gets into the water? And I assume your answer is no.
I believe I've given my answer, hopefully it's satisfactory to the board.
No is your answer.
Anybody else?
I have one question.
Oh, just step up to the mic and state your name and address
I have
again,
one
please.
question. My name is James Cook. I live on Dutchtown Road in Hillsborough, New Jersey.
Thank you.
I have a question for Sean. Who makes the decision on who repairs people's homes that you damaged?
Ultimately, the decisions at...
I didn't hear you.
Ultimately, the decisions come down to the owners of the company.
The
The
owners of the
Sylvies, yes.
So they pick and choose, or?
No, sir, I can't speak for them, though, they're not here.
Could I leave this here for,
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave it with the attorney,
Yeah, leave
if
it
you
with the
would,
attorney,
please.
sir.
pardon me?
Well, excuse me, sir, what is it? What's
It's just things that's happened to me through the times, and,
Counsel, I'll take it.
you can bring it in for whatever it's worth.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
State your name and address, please, again.
Put it as 01, why don't you put it as...
It's Mike Pissarro, Policy Director for the Watershed Institute, 31 Titus Mill Road, Pennington, New Jersey. I just want to make sure I understand. Do you know what the pumping capacity from the processed water to the tank?
No, sir, I do not know off the top of my head.
And do you know what the processing capacity for the press and the pumping house is?
Same answer, no.
Okay. So if you are pumping water through the process, what mechanism do you have, if any, to ensure that you're not overflowing that storage tank and the capacity of the press?
Sir, I'm certain that the design of the system takes that into account. But again, I didn't design the system, so I can't speak to that.
Is there anyone here that can?
Can I state that this is the DEP's,
Speak to the
looks
microphone.
looks over it, and they're in control, not this board, with the adequacy of it.
I would submit that this is part of them treating stormwater on their site and their water, and that if this board is going to deal with the stormwater prospects of this building and this process, that it is this board's obligation
The
under
board-
their MS4 permit.
The board is approving a building with machinery and a holding tank. Under the law of the state of New Jersey, when the DEP has jurisdiction over a permit, okay, they control and they judge the adequacy of the process. For instance, this board cannot, for instance...
Mr. Shasman, to the mic, please.
Speaking to the mic.
Yeah.
trying to-
No, just into the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This board cannot control, for instance, wetlands. Okay, Stockwell versus the Township of Edison is the name of the case, okay? Likewise, this board cannot control the adequacy of the pumping, the storage, and everything. They believe that the process that's going to have a permit will be adequate to control what they want, as explained by Mr. Erlin. So this board is only approving a 4,800 square foot building with machinery in it and a holding tank.
Sir.
Everything else was approved by Montgomery, was approved by all the other agencies, and hopefully the permit will be issued by the DEP shortly.
Sir, I would agree with you that the municipality cannot control wetlands, but to the extent that this process, this system, and this application is dealing with the process of stormwater under the Township's MS4 permit and its stormwater management ordinance and regulations, it has an obligation to review it and deal with it.
Well, the testimony is that the building that's before the board is over impervious coverage. So we're not creating additional impervious coverage.
And I'll add that this holding tank is not managing stormwater. The water that falls into the basin is classified as the basin in the quarry sump is classified as processed water by the department. So we are not pumping stormwater into the tank.
Part of the stormwater basins, those are the ones that are in Montgomery as well, though, correct?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Part of the stormwater tanks are in Montgomery. Is that correct?
Stormwater
They're not in
tanks?
Hillsborough. Yeah,
Stormwater basin?
the stormwater
There's only-
basin.
The basin itself is in Montgomery, yes.
Right. In terms of our resolution, what we typically do, though, is we will put that all, of the permits and regulations and compliance must be adhered to. So that's part and parcel of our resolution. So the applicant has to abide by all jurisdictions, regulations as well. So that's what, from our standpoint, that will go in our resolution.
Okay, then I may have just one last question. So the stormwater that is in the quarry basin, that is not going through this process system, that's going straight to the basin that is being constructed or has been constructed?
Yes, sir, at which time it'll be pumped to the stone washing area, then from the stone washing area up to the tank.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Water from the quarry sump goes into the new basins, which are in Montgomery. Those basins get pumped to the stone washing area. The stone washing area collects water, and that gets pumped directly into the clarifying tank.
And your application here tonight is not changing any of the existing stormwater basins that may be in Hillsborough?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public have any questions for this professional? Counsel, do you have any other witnesses?
No, I don't.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. I want to make a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I guess you want to give a wrap up and then?
Yeah, I'll quote from 188-108.
I'm sorry.
188 of your zoning ordinance. Purpose of the mining and quarry district. It is the purpose of the mining and quarry districts to allow present quarrying and mining to continue as permitted use rather than as a non-conforming use. As Mr. Gorman points out, we're for permitted use. These zoning districts recognize the unique operations within the township due to the presence of a natural resource suitable for mining, but at the same time recognize the unique necessity for public regulations brought about by the existence and excavation of these natural features, resources. These district regulations are intended to provide for the continued excavation of natural resources and their processing in those areas which are currently being actively mined and used for processing. The provisions of these districts are also intended to require the site to be used in a manner that is reasonable to the operators, and at the same time require the site to be safe, helpful, and aesthetic as possible, and be usable subsequent to the completion of the excavating process. The limits of the district are intended to be oriented to the specific conditions of excavating, such as eliminating erosion, avoiding damage, drainage problems, leaving the site useful, reducing damages associated with steep operating faces, and recognizing these industrial uses in the environs of a rural but growing residential community. That's from 188-108 of your ordinance. It's amended by S9 1978 by ordinance number 78-3. So as I think the testimony brought upon this board is we're trying to improve the operation of the mining district and continuing it in a better manner as permitted use rather than a non-conforming use. That's what we're doing here. And by doing this 4,600 square foot building, it's the last step that's testified to by Mr. Stiers and Mr. Erlin of completing our improvement of the water coming off the quarry. That's my summation.
Mr. Straussman, I got one other question, and maybe, I don't know if it was this project mandated by the DEP, or was this a voluntary program?
No, this is mandated by the DEP.
Yeah, this was a consent order.
That's right, just for the record, of those who, so this.
We have to comply.
You're complying.
As testified to, it's taken a long time to get the approvals of the chemicals used, contrary to one witness here. It was proven in Montgomery, after objections were raised in Montgomery and to the DEP, that the process we're using actually does what the DEP wants. And that's why they're issuing a permit, and that's why we're here, just to complete the completion of the building, to house that equipment, to finalize the permit that we're getting from the DEP.
Thank you.
Council?
Believe the motion would be for a minor site plan approval for a 4,600 square foot unmanned new press building with an adjacent holding tank to remove slurry pursuant to an administrative consent order from the DEP. They're asking for a waiver for the environmental impact statement and a requirement from the community impact statement as well.
4,800.
I'm sorry, 4,800. There was a removal of a DEP removal to remove a dam, extension of rails to permit more car traffic and less disturbance on Route 601, construction of a conveyor belt from area at the top, construction of a process basin to filter and clean process water with requisite state and agency approvals. The applicant agrees to comply with the items in Mr. Euro's memo of September 20, 2019, specifically the 12-inch HDPE line with the above grade and extension was currently on site. And I believe that's it.
Thank you. So can I have a motion to...
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Just one clarification. It was testified as Mr. Stiers' testimony that the 4,800 square foot was said to be building is actually a structure, not a building.
Okay.
That's right.
It's a clarification then.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gorman. All right, with that being said, then, can I have a motion to approve the constructual, I can't read this one, sorry, Sean. Is that? Thank you, sorry. The Constructural Dynamics, Inc., also known as Gibraltar Rock Quarry Updated, 10-PB-09 MSP.
19, just curious, 19 PB.
19 PB. Is it 19
Yeah.
or 09? Yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. 19 PB-09 MSP. Want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Mr. Scobah?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Senator Romita?
Yes.
Mr. Unami Lapani?
Yes.
Mayor Delacour?
Yeah, thanks for your efforts in trying to improve the water situation on site.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yeah, I think it's important that we continue to move ahead so that the applicant can comply with the consent order and hopefully can, improve the quality of the water and also hopefully address some of the residents concerned with noise as well, so let's keep the ball moving forward. So I would say yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Schuster.
We have another meeting.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. One piece of housekeeping business for tonight. I'm looking at the agenda for the business meeting, and we have nothing on the business meeting. The board can select to cancel this meeting if need be, and then the next meeting will be in November.
Okay. I would say if there's no
What was the
business, we
date?
should cancel the business meeting.
Be what,
Do you need a motion?
I didn't hear him.
Cancel the
Cancel
business
the-
meeting on the
business
24th?
24th?
I'll make the motion to
Okay.
cancel the business meeting.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, cancel the business meeting?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so need a
So then the next meeting is the 7th?
7th of November?
Correct.
Yes.
All right, so with that being said, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.